Hey everyone. So I know it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, and that's largely because I haven't competed in jiu-jitsu for a while. The first competition that I was going to take part in back when I was living in Marin, California, in the North Bay, training at Marin MMA, didn't happen because I got a concussion rolling with a brown belt who accidentally kicked me in the head, in the temple. So that was exciting. First concussion I've ever had that I'm aware of having, and it was awful, and I don't recommend it to anyone. So if you're going to roll with a brown belt, don't get kicked in the head. The next jiu-jitsu competition that I actually was entered in was this spring, and it was going to happen in May. Well, we all know what happened with that, so that got indefinitely postponed, and instead of training jiu-jitsu, I've taken up sort of brushed off my running shoes and gotten back into my second love. First one being Taekwondo when I was a kid, but this is the sport, trail running in particular, cross country running, that helped me pay for college. So I think I have something to say about it that might interest you folks. In particular, to do with downhill running and the technical pieces of that aspect of the sport. So what you just saw was a video of me descending North Burma Trail in Annadel State Park, which is in my hometown. So let's go over, before we sort of dissect the video. I just want to go over a little bit of my technique and my understanding, some of my philosophy on downhill trail running. If you don't care about any of this, just fast forward through this part, skip this, and go to the next part of the video where I actually slow it down and do some slow motion narration, narrate over some slow motion stuff. So basically, the first thing to understand, and where all the technique of this activity derives from, is the fact that downhill running is dangerous, right? And falling hurts like hell. I've split my chin, I've sprained my ankle, and there's plenty of missing skin out there in the world that I've left behind. And in each instance, it's because something's gone wrong with my feet, okay? There's really only three major ways for you to get tripped up and fall, and that's rolling your ankle, okay? Losing traction, so slipping, and clipping a toe, right? And all of these are as a result of different technical deficiencies, things that you've done wrong, either estimating how the trail actually works or what it's like, or just in your carelessness, right? I find that most of my injuries come from carelessness, as opposed to being 100% focused and zeroed in on what the trail is throwing at me. So in order to overcome these things, the first most important thing to understand is that you need to develop an awareness of where your feet are in space. If you don't have an understanding or an awareness of where your feet are relative to the obstacles that the trail is throwing at you, you are not going to be able to do effective technical downhill running. You also have to have an understanding of what good rocks and bad rocks are. Good roots, bad roots, just different obstacles or different features of the trail that might literally trip you up. Some of them are actually really helpful. Some of them are put there in ways that can actually help you keep your line or prevent you from falling if you know how to use them correctly. But we're not going to go over that in this video. It's something that you kind of have to just learn on your own with practice. And then obviously it really helps to know what the dirt and the trail are like. And I say that it's like separately for good reason. So the trail itself, obviously it helps to know where the obstacles are, where it's slippery, or where you can get a good purchase on what rocks and so forth. The more intimate knowledge you have of a trail, the better. I find that the more times I run a trail, the more comfortable I am, the faster I can go. The first time you run a trail, it's going to feel scary because it's new and you're not really sure what it's going to throw at you next. But if you know what's coming next, generally speaking, or at least know that it's not dangerous in the next 20, 30 meters, then you're going to have a lot more confidence and you're going to be able to go a lot faster. That is a separate concept from the dirt itself. Or like the rocks, but really more specifically the dirt, because the dirt is what is going to determine how basically how sure your footing is when you're not putting your foot on a rock. Okay, so there's some trails that are like really powdery, and it's really hard to get good purchase on the dirt itself. Other trails, it's super hard packed dirt, and it's good as gold. It's a great running surface, and it's not slippery or slick at all. And so it's um, understanding that nuance of the trail itself is really important for you in your safety. And then finally, obviously, understanding what kind of off trail hazards there are. Like in plenty of places in this park, in Annadel in particular, there's like sheer drops that'll send you, tumbling down into a creek bed 30, 40, 50 feet. And obviously then there's trees and rocks and other things that if you leave the trail, you're going to run headlong into and go Sonny Bono on, right? Um, the essential piece of running downhill technically is your center of gravity. Okay, it's really all about balance and mobility. Those are the two sort of overall concepts that you need to understand. But with respect to your center of gravity, you want to make sure that it's stacked over your feet. Okay, and on the flats, you can sort of lean forward, get a nice forward lean going, and that's going to help you maintain your momentum. Well, when you're running downhill, that extra momentum is harder to manage, and it can actually end up being dangerous. So for the most part, you just want to let the downhill do the work for you, right? You want to let gravity move you down the trail for the most part. And obviously, the steeper the trail, the truer this is. If it's just a little bit steep, then yeah, maybe a little forward lean is appropriate. As you saw at the beginning of that video, I was running on pretty flat ground, and so there was a forward lean. My strides were longer and so forth. But that goes out the window. That all it's sort of dialed back when the terrain is steeper. And this is a little counterintuitive because you are landing on the balls of your feet. You're not heel striking. Never heel strike. Heel striking is just really bad for you, no matter what kind of terrain you're running on. But this is forefoot striking, right? This is balls of the foot striking, and the reason for that will become clear in a second. The forward lean on downhill, I just want to emphasize how dangerous that can be. It's because you're going to fall face first, okay? You don't want to split your chin like I did. You don't want to hit your head on a rock. You're going downhill, so you're going to fall farther than you would on flat ground, right? Because the slope heading out in front of you extends the distance that your head or your upper body is going to travel before it meets the ground. And because it's technical, you are going to fall into a rock or something like that. And a rock is stronger than your skull, and bad things again can happen if you're not careful. So, like I said, this is about balance and mobility. Balance, of course, more like above all, just because balance is what keeps you from falling. And so you need to make sure, again, that your center of gravity is over your feet. And use your arms. There are a couple points in that video where I flared my arms out in order to maintain balance. There's obviously the element of speed, okay? And speed is moderated by having a low gear, right? If you're in a car and you're going downhill and you have it in first gear, the engine is turning over. There's a lot of RPMs, right? And you can kind of analogize that to running with very frequent contact with the ground, right? Your cadence is very high, okay? You're touching the ground a lot every minute. And the reason you're doing that is because it allows you to more effectively control speed, among other things, but speed is the primary reason. And then agility, you really need to use what agility you have, and if you can develop agility through, say, I don't know, martial arts training, or just continuing to work on your trail running, you're going to do better on this kind of task. So stride being short, right, which is separate from frequent contact with the ground. They're related, but it's separate, right? You could imagine having very frequent contact with the ground, but basically having really long strides, so you're running faster, right? This is an instance where your stride in and of itself is already short, and you could have very infrequent contact with the ground with a short stride. You're just going to be going very, very slow. So both of these things need to come together in technical downhill running, and the reason you want a short stride is because that gives you a lot more ability to put the other foot down. Okay, so one foot touches the ground, the other foot touches the ground directly, like very quickly after it, and without covering much distance. And this keeps your center of gravity over your feet. Okay, so it kind of goes back to that maintaining balance. Okay, and then finally, again, I just want to emphasize, if you're going to fall, you need to fail well. Okay, don't overcommit, and that's another part of using your agility and having a short stride, is that you're not going to go tumbling down. You can literally just sit on your butt. Okay, you're going to maybe lose some skin, maybe you're going to, like, bruise your butt. Worst case scenario, break a tailbone, and that can obviously have its own severe consequences, blah blah blah. But for the most part, you want to sit down, don't fall down. Okay, if you feel like things are going south for you, and essentially just have it in the back of your mind at any given moment going down a trail like this, that you could very easily, very quickly eat shit, and you want to have a contingency plan for what you're going to do about that. Mine is to sit. So some basic techniques, okay? There's a lot of other nuance to this, but I'm going to throw 6 of them at you. Here's the first 3, and that's forefoot striking. We already talked a little bit about this, but it essentially ensures greater mobility, right? And mobility is going to be one of the key pieces of maintaining and controlling your balance, okay, your speed and your agility. These are all related concepts, okay? But I really believe that mobility is king, because mobility is what's going to allow you to ensure that that center of gravity is over your feet. Okay, so it's going to be one of the things that really maintains your balance. Okay, and that comes from forefoot striking. That comes from using the balls of your feet. The balls of your feet have so much articulation, forward, backward, left, right, up and down. Like, there's so many things that your feet can do, that if you're striking on the midfoot or the heel, are just not available to your feet. Again, the shorter stride. Okay, this is easier on your body, right? The longer your stride, the more force is being transmitted from your feet up through your knees, your hips, your lower back, and so forth. So the shorter your stride, the easier it is on you. As I said, this is like a low gear, meaning you have more touches, and more touches means more control. Okay, this is essential. Again, control is going to help you avoid eating shit, right? Stutter stepping, this is something that's really important too, especially on steep and technical parts of the trail, okay? Because it, again, helps control your balance and your speed, and it allows the springs of your Achilles tendons to do the work, right? And it allows you to sort of stay mobile, again, when you're stutter stepping. So think of, like, when a football player wants to juke out another football player, right? Like a wide receiver, they stutter step, and then they pick a direction. Okay, and it allows them to not only move forward or backward if they want, but laterally. Okay, and so that's really key when you're on a trail, especially when the trail is turning. That's one thing in this video you didn't see was actually turns in the trail. There are plenty of other trails that I'll upload later after I go totally shred them, but right now, for this one, it was just a straight shot, and so there wasn't a lot of need to do lateral movement, but it becomes really essential, not only for dodging obstacles, but for making sharp, tight turns to be able to do stutter stepping. Posting, okay, posting and tapping, these two are kind of opposite each other. All right, posting is really firmly using your feet or a foot to alter speed and direction. Typically, this is, again, to encourage a kind of lateral movement. I'll highlight where this happens in the video in the next segment. It actually is one of the more crucial parts of the video, in a subtle way. Tapping is also really crucial in the video. I only really do it once, but it happens at a point that could have gotten pretty dangerous pretty fast if I didn't do it. And effectively, what tapping is putting as little weight as possible on one foot in order to get the other foot out in front of it, so that foot can do the work. Okay, so in the video, it's my right foot that does the tapping. My left foot is down camber, and I need to maintain a line if I'm going to stay safe. And so my left foot needs to be strong, in some sense needs to be posted on the ground, and I can't drift down camber. I can't drift to the left. The right foot is going to just barely touch the ground, just enough to get myself balanced so that I don't, fall over to the right, because if I don't put my right foot down, I'm going to fall. But just enough so that I don't fall, so that I can get that left foot out again in front of me and continue on the line that I'm going, okay, so that I don't slide down camber, all right? And then dropping. This happens lots in the video, but essentially, like Bruce Lee said, you want to be like water, okay? And sometimes in the course of a river, there's a waterfall. So on a trail, sometimes you just need to drop. You don't force anything, you don't jump, you just drop down to the next segment of trail. It's a really nice sensation. You're floating, and it gives you some opportunity to look ahead a little bit and think about what's going to come next. It's just sort of that moment of coming up for air before you really have to focus on where your feet are going again. All right, so those are some of the techniques. The big picture here is that you need to pick a good line. Okay, when you're doing downhill trail running, technical running in particular, you have to pick a good line. Any mountain biker will tell you this. In running, to a certain extent, it's less important than in mountain biking, because in mountain biking you don't have your feet on the ground and you don't get to kind of move around obstacles, and you really have to pick the line. The line does that. But in some ways, it's as important, if not more important. And the reason for that is that your feet can be very delicate, and if you hurt or break your feet, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so, basically, a good line when you're trail running, a good line is going to follow the contour of the trail and use the camber, slope, and other obstacles to your advantage. And this is something that, again, you really just have to learn. It comes with practice. It's hard to teach. And the thing about it, too, is that what you want to do, what you want to have sort of be to your advantage, you could pick a hard line to have some fun. You could pick an easy line to go fast, right? It all kind of depends on what you want to do, what you want out of the trail that day. And I guess for what it's worth, I tend to slalom a little bit down trails when it's available, when they're wide enough, and that's essentially to reduce speed, increase my control. One of the things is that when your feet are angled straight ahead, that's the direction you're going, and the kind of contact that you can have and the traction that you have is actually worse than if your feet are slightly angled, right? Because if your feet are angled to the force, against the force, I should say, of your momentum, which wants to take you straight down the hill, if your feet are angled against that, you actually have greater grip on the trail and you get better traction. So as you slalom, anyone who's either mountain biked or snowboarded or whatever waters, any kind of skiing, any kind of gravity based activity that involves a slalom, this is the principle that's in play, is that when you're lined up with the force of gravity, you're going to go fast and you might lose control. And so as you move slalom sort of laterally across the trail and at an angle to that force of gravity, but it gives you greater control. You get a better bite. So this is, again, just kind of a nice technical overview and introduction to some of the ways in which these concepts show up in downhill technical trail running. But this is by no means exhaustive, right? Running form in and of itself is like an entirely other concept that this video doesn't touch on. And same in some ways of, like I said, good rocks and bad rocks and picking a line. Like, these are all concepts that more advanced trail runners will have a pretty good understanding of. Some of you may be intermediate or wanting to get interested in the sport. This is some of the stuff you have to look forward to, and hopefully you can incorporate, some of the basic stuff, like understanding balance and understanding picking a line and, what have you, just the very basics of it. I really encourage you to get out there and do it. If you run roads and you have trails nearby, please just get out on a trail at least, once every 4 times that you go run. Okay, trail running is really good for you compared to road running, because every step is different, and so the muscles in your feet and your lower legs, in particular, your calves, they have to work differently on every stride, and that's going to help prevent lots of injuries down the line. And furthermore, trails are gentler on you. Dirt is a lot gentler on your bones and your ligaments than asphalt or concrete. So if you have trail, get on it. And if if you do trail running, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Okay. Oh, and check out this link if you want sort of more like top level basic information about trail running and techniques. I found this to be a pretty good read. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get into sort of my breakdown of that 2-minute segment of technical downhill trail, and we'll cover some of the fun parts. We'll cover some of the fun parts in pretty good detail. Okay, so this begins with me having a very sort of flat part of the trail, right? So my stride is longer. I'm not having to do a whole lot of technical work here. It's really just cruising along. Relaxed stride, relaxed cadence, kind of following the main line of the trail. And there's not a lot happening at first. It starts to get a little technical here. And this is where the sort of main descent begins. You can see me beginning to kind of stutter step. You can see me doing some drops and so forth, picking where I want to put my feet, and getting quite a bit more technical here. So this is the first part. I'm going to go slow-mo. There's a drop right there. There's a sort of skip step, and then a post, right, and then another drop. That sort of rounds that out. Now, I didn't talk a whole lot about skip stepping. Okay, you can watch this portion here. Another big drop. This is going to get slowed down again. So what I'm doing here is a big post, another skip step. I drop, clear that rock at the same time, and then continue to a drop. Okay, and the arms go out for balance. Now, a skip step is what happens sort of at the end of a drop or of any kind of quick vertical change. And what that is basically going to mean is that one leg you don't want the whole leg to take all the impact. Okay, you can see me doing again a lot of stutter stepping here. You can see me doing some drops. And right now trying to hold a line that keeps to the right of the trail because of the camber of the trail. So the skip step, you don't want just one leg to take all the impact. Okay, the other leg needs to help it. And so very shortly after the first leg comes down, the other leg is going to follow. Okay, and now we're coming to the most technical portion of the trail here. You can see a lot of work happening here as I pass these people. Now this part's going to get slowed down quite a bit. And here we go. So it starts basically with a drop. Okay. And it follows with a stutter step, and I almost clipped my toe there. You can kind of hear it. And then I'm going to end up doing this sort of neat thing here where the left foot clears this big pile of rocks only because the right foot was able to post there, and there is my little tap. That's the little tap right there with the right foot, while my left legs are sort of posting, and I'm also sort of skip stepping there, okay, because I want to control both my speed and also where I am on the trail. And of course, this is just for fun. That breaks all the rules. But you can see me take a big step, lift off, okay? And again, I'm still, boom, boom. I'm still almost 2-foot landing, but not quite. A little bit of a skip step, not, in between. This is neat because the left foot there, you can see it threads in between the rocks, okay? It doesn't just go over the rocks, it actually threads in between. And that's a little bit more of an advanced type of maneuver that I wouldn't really recommend because it's kind of dangerous. And so the rest of this is just cruising home. There's a little bit of stutter stepping, here throughout where I try to basically control my speed. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. So, I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you were able to sort of pick out some of those pieces, really see the pieces that I talked about in the 20-minute lecture. I didn't realize how long it was until it was over, but there it is, and it was all relevant. And in fact, it's not even done because here's some other points that I want to just sort of leave you with. Right, which is this issue of scanning, okay? Like the need to look ahead on the trail while still being able to put your feet exactly where you want to put them and do with your feet exactly what you want to do with them. This is really important because your scanning distance is really going to determine your safety in so many ways. So like the more of the trail you can take in, the better. But the more you can be looking at where your feet are going to go, the more information that you can take in. Like the closer you look to where your feet are, the more information you can take in to determine exactly where to put your feet and what to do with them. So, it sort of helps to be able to look up and look down and look up and look down, kind of take in the big picture information about the trail, but then also to be able to look down and take in the sort of minuscule or minute details that are really going to be important potentially in what happens with your feet. Generally speaking, the steeper the trail and the faster you're going, right, the more technical the trail, the shorter the scanning distance because you can't be effectively looking ahead a long distance while doing the right things with your feet on a steep, fast technical trail. And so as a result, like if you are up against that border, that boundary of like, I don't actually know what's coming next on the trail, like you need to stop and you need to slow down because the last thing you want is a surprise. Okay, so like really be aware of your scanning distance, and you'll feel it. Like this is not a conscious thing. Like you will literally feel like you will feel adrenaline when you start to realize like, oh God, I don't know what's happening next on the trail. Like I need to, what is going up next, right? Like you will want to slow down. Your body will tell you to slow down. Listen to that. Okay. Um, Other hominids, like people are super unpredictable, panicky animals. Okay. I'm really lucky that these two women that I passed in this video didn't like freak out and move over to the right or something and get in my way. Like I've plenty of opportunities to yell, hey, on your right or whatever. I didn't take it. I didn't actually see them because I was so focused on some of the closer stuff on the trail until it was sort of obvious to me that they had heard me or whatever. But you really can't assume that people hear you, that they know how fast you're going. You really, some of them will assume that you can stop safely, which in many cases maybe you can't. And as a result of that, like again, just pay super close attention to other people on the trail as they come up, because these can be these are mobile obstacles, right? If you think about it in that framework, and they are big and can really cause you to get tangled up and maybe get you caught up in a lawsuit, which nobody wants. And then gear, right? So you notice that in the video, I took my sunglasses off. That's because it started to get more technical and it was more shaded in that area. And sunglasses are good, obviously, for all kinds of reasons, but in a more shaded, more technical area, sometimes it's actually worse for depth perception to have your sunglasses on. It's actually harder to see what exactly is coming your way. So that was the reason that I took my sunglasses off. I will say that put objects in both of my hands. And when you have an object in both of your hands or in one of your hands, what you have to understand is that object is expendable. Okay. Do not like try to protect that object while you fall. Okay. If that happens, because your face is not expendable. Okay. So you need to be aware of the fact that if you're going down, and it's not just a sit down and scoot your butt along the ground for a little bit kind of fall, like forget whatever is in your hands. I don't care if it's your phone. I don't care if it's the GoPro. Like I don't care what is in your hands. It can go flying. What your hands need to be doing is keeping your head safe. Okay, that's what your hands need to be doing when you start to go down in a real bad and nasty way. And then of course, finally, following up on lawsuits and going to the hospital, have fun. Because no one else is going to do it for you, right? You got to go have fun in the world. If you just sit around waiting for fun to come to you, it's not going to happen, okay? Because fun people want to hang out with other fun people. And what are fun people doing? They're out there making their own fun. So get out there, have some fun, fuck COVID, and enjoy your life. Oh, and yeah, I mean, for sure, like, shelter in place, wear a mask, whatever. I don't mean like